Feeling all, give you every advantage I found. Couldn't find a better fit for them, along with my crown. And since the baton was passed, I've been down. Cause failing's not an option, and dad is not a noun, not at all.
My message to any dad, man, first off, know that, yeah, it is a hard job, but it's the greatest job in the world. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I wouldn't change anything about it. Everything you're doing from here on out, if it didn't have purpose before, now it has purpose. It's the most important thing you'll ever do. Just be a dad.
Welcome to another episode of Dad is Not a Noun. My name is Ishmael, changing the narrative for men of color and fatherhood, as well as changing the narrative on the things I care about. And today, I'm truly honored, humbly privileged to have this guest. Just a little side note, I write like poetry on my side, and this guest has been one of my inspirations when it comes to my writing. And I'm truly honored to have him on. He is a poet, an author, a teacher, and the founding member of the Last Poets. And I'm going to say this too. He's one of the godfathers of hip hop. And even though the Last Poets is bigger than hip hop, but without the Last Poet story, you cannot tell the story of hip hop. And I'm truly honored to have him on. He's a father, a grandfather, a human, just a all around amazing human being. And I always say, it's not about being a good person. It's about being a great ancestor. And he's following that path, and he's keep on going. And I'm truly honored to have him on with me. Abiodun Oyewole, thank you, sir, for coming on.
Thank you for having me, man. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you. My first question to you, because I ask all my guests this, because I'm all about mental health. How's your heart at this moment?
How's my health at this moment?
No, like I'm all about mental health. And
right.
So how's your heart at this moment?
My heart is fine. You know, it's strong, and it's beating to the sounds of African drums all day long. And I judge how my heart is by the things that I do, and by because I'm a creative person and I'm always creating, and my heart kind of leads me into whatever it is that I'm creating. I function. I put my heart to the test often because I'm a feeling person, and if you don't feel, if you're not using your heart to feel, you're not really feeling. So my heart is a barometer of my feelings, and I listen to my heart like I listen to my soul. And I also appreciate the fact that the ancestors and the powers, the forces around me have given me an opportunity to continue to live my life and to continue to have my heart beating.
That's right. And the one thing too is I felt that heart when back in 2021, the Real Dads Network awarded you the Lifetime Activist Award. And you poured your emotion in your heart in receiving the award when you talked about the story about your father.
Right.
You want to tell the story to the audience?
Well, you know, first of all, I was totally just blown away with the fact that there was an organization called Real Dads, you know, giving fathers their props, because I know for a fact that Father's Day doesn't get the play that Mother's Day gets. Father's Day is just another day. Mother's Day is a very big deal, and we are matriarchal. I got all that, but I have my father. I mentioned to many people, I've never seen my father. I don't know my biological father, and it didn't really. It's never really upset me because I had a man that actually raised me. I was raised with my aunt and my uncle, and my uncle was my father. He was a man that gave me all the tools. He gave me everything that I needed to have in order to be a successful man in this world, in my life. And he was crude. He was not a nice guy. He would sit down and tell me stories and tell me jokes. He made me work. I had a really serious hard work ethic. He put me, and I mean, I had to get up every morning at 5:30 in the morning. I had to feed chickens and rabbits before I went to school. I mean, nobody does that in Jamaica, Queens. I mean, I'm talking about maybe somebody does that in Savannah, Georgia, but I did that in Jamaica, Queens. We had a yard where we had dogs. I had to give the dogs new water. We had another yard across the street from the house. He turned it into like a mini farm. So I knew how to grow collard greens and corn and tomatoes and all kinds of stuff. He showed me how to be a self-sufficient man, even though I wanted to be a kid. I wanted to play. I wanted to have a good time. I wanted to I wanted to do what other kids had done, but I had to work. And because of his work ethic that he gave me then, it has allowed me to continue to be about taking care of myself today in a way that I could be very proud. Um, Matter of fact, when I was teaching on a regular basis, I have songs and poems that I would use to educate my kids. And besides teaching them lessons or historical stories of our heroes and heroes, I also wanted to teach them character. And so I would talk about my father, and of course, in elementary school, you're gonna have some bad boys that are gonna be like bullies, and they're gonna kind of bug folks out. And for some reason, one day I decided to sing the song I had written for my father in the class, and just to see if it would have an effect on my little bad boys. Man, it was like my father had come to life and had a paddle in his hand, and he paddled them boys in their butt because they were good all day long after that song. And I realized the name of the song is Daddy Joe, and I realized that that song had a great effect on them because all I was doing in the song was just telling the folks about how I was raised, and the message translated to these kids to the point where they were moved by it, and it changed their attitude. But then we as Black folks have music has always been a way that we can teach and raise our levels of consciousness. So I was very happy to know that I had written something based on the motivation or the inspiration of my father that could motivate and inspire the kids to do the right thing.
Can you give us a little sample of the song that you sang
Sure,
to?
there were times when I knew that my father was right, even though I hated him with all of my might. He used to be so mean, never happy it seemed, made me work so hard. I never had time to dream. Daddy, Daddy Joe, you taught me things I needed to know. How to be strong, yeah, and take a blow and never let your weakness show. I remember the day I wanted to run away because love was something I could not feel. It seemed nobody cared. Work was life was unfair, and work was the only thing I could feel. But my mother said, son, when your work is all done, you can go to a show with your friends. But do your work well, cause your father can tell, and he'll make you do the whole thing over again. Daddy, Daddy Joe, you taught me things I needed to know. How to be strong, yeah, and take a blow and never let your weakness show. Whoa, Daddy, Daddy Joe, you taught me things I needed to know. How to be strong, yeah, and take a blow and never let your weakness show. Now, when I got grown and was living on my own, I thought I would have a good time. But things were so hard and I couldn't stand that silly job. And peace was something I could not find. But as time moved on and I got strong, I remember what my father had said. And even though he was gone, his ways weren't all wrong, and his words will never ever be dead. Daddy, Daddy Joe, you taught me things I needed to know. How to be strong, yeah, and take a blow and never let your weakness show. Whoa, Daddy, Daddy Joe, you taught me things I needed to know. How to be strong and take a blow and never ever let your weakness show. Oh, no. That's there you go.
Yes. That I love it. I love it. Thank you for sharing that because I think that's important because that made you as well as the wisdom of your mother, as well as your grandma, that made you the person you are today. Um, my next question to you is uh, the if like the stuff that your father taught you, because I remember it was an interview you did with I Am Hip Hop
Uh-huh.
where a lot of stuff not your perspective, but things kind of changed after the assassination of Dr. King. Like
Right.
you felt like you wanted to fuck some motherfuckers up. I could
Yeah,
curse.
I want to be a serial killer because I really felt that see, my mother was really in love with Dr. King. She felt like he was the second coming of Christ. My
Right.
father really didn't down. He wasn't too keen on Dr. King because my father was from Savannah, Georgia, and he knew how beastly and how deadly white folks were. And he said that man gonna get himself killed. Talking about non-violence. He's in the wrong place. We talking about non-violence because those folks are violent down there. He said everybody got a gun, and so J. Joe wasn't really down with Dr. King. But when they killed Dr. King, I felt like they had really just killed black people because I knew what Dr. King stood for. Matter of fact, my mother wanted me to put my hand on the television when he was doing his speech. I have a dream, like I was gonna get some power from it. But the fact is that my I just felt like I had to do something because so many black folks had put their faith in Dr. King, and for them to shoot him down like that, I just felt it was a miserable kind of. I just had a very bad feeling in my heart that these folks are never going to be fair. They're going to do everything in their power to get rid of us, and we have to do something. So I wanted to really hurt somebody. I had a real thought in my mind that I was going to get a gun and go on a rooftop and just start shooting white people at random. But that caused me to call David Nelson, who was one of the other original members of the Last Poets, because he had mentioned the idea of having a group of poets to give an example to black people of how much we need to unify. And he wanted to he thought, because poets usually, they don't hang out with groups, they usually are individual. And they can be reclusive. They can talk to trees and flowers, but leave people out of it. David thought that if we had three brothers at least from three walks of life coming together to deal with the same issue, then that would be an example as to how much we need to come together as a people. And it was a good idea. So I called David and I asked him, I said, David, if you don't get this group together, I'm going to do something crazy. Because, I mean, I had to do something. Because they had killed the civil rights movement when they killed Dr. King. And the only logical place to go was to Black Power. And I was raised as a Black Power child. We had food. If the grocery stores had gone on strike, I could eat for a whole year because we had a freezer full of food. We grew our own food. I mean, I was prepared for whatever. And I definitely didn't, I was taught how to be a self-sufficient man from an early age. So Black Power was right in line with my way of thinking. And my father, he hadn't read no books. I don't know if he could even read books. He was only the third grade, but he had common Black sense and he knew where we were. And he had given me a certain ethic that I remember, that I still hold on to today. So when the Last Poets were formed, that was, to me, that was like I made my words my bullets and my mouth was a gun. That was how I dealt with the issue. And but the thing about it, people need to remember too, we didn't attack the system of white folks as much as we attacked how we were treating each other, because we knew that our issue was not them. They're going to be who they are. We can't change them, but we did not have to be niggers. We didn't have to be in disagreement with organizing. So we targeted those folks in our community that were holding us back, that were doing stuff that was in opposition to the unity that we had to have. Even now, as I'm hoping that Donald Trump's presence in the White House will be a wake-up call, because we need to unplug our cords out of their sockets and plug into each other. We have all the resources, all the wherewithal, the wisdom, the knowledge, the strength to change anything that we want to change in this country. And Donald Trump should be a catalyst for that, because he's not going to offer any change for us. He's looking to make himself look great and to grandstand and to keep the rich people rich. And we have got to recognize that we are wealthy by design and we are also divine with our wealth. We need to recognize that our spirit is much stronger than any aspect of life in America, and we need to work with that. And we're in a physical world, but we are spiritual people. And if we concentrate on the spirit of us and come together, there is nothing that can stop us from achieving whatever we want to achieve.
And I agree with that 100%. And then also just talk about when the first album came out and historically what made this album unique. This was the first album that had the actual like words on the pamphlet
Inside
of the
cover.
on the cover.
Yeah,
Just
there, on the inside cover, like I told, Alan Douglas was the guy that produced the very first album we did. And I remember when we were, after we recorded it, I told him, I said, Alan, do me a favor, put the words on the inside cover. I didn't realize that I was doing something that was revolutionary because we were the very first group in America to do that. My son researched and found out that the very first group to ever do that was the Beatles in 1966 with a piece called Sergeant Pepper's. But I told my son Evan, I said, the Beatles are not from America though. We did it in America, and nobody had done that before us. And we don't get credit for it, but that was something I wanted that to happen because I thought we were talking so fast, no one was going to be able to understand us. And if you could read with us as while we were running, while we were saying what we were saying, you could get it more. You could get the text. And I discovered that that was a teaching tool. Umar and I were in D.C. some years later, and his sister called in. It was one of those shows on BT, and she says, "I want to thank you all for helping me raise my boys." And she was a single mother. She had two sons, and she said, whenever they act up, I put them in the room with a speaker, and the only thing they could listen to is the Last Poets and Malcolm X. And the only thing they can read is a line of notes on the Malcolm X album and the words of the Last Poets, which is on the album. She says, and both of their reading scores went up. I
wow.
said, wow. I said, that's unique. And that practice could be done with anything because we're moved by music, we're moved by rhythm. And you can teach math, you can teach science, you can teach history, any of that using art as the basis of teaching. My son, one that is a teacher, he does that. He'll take music by Bad and Bougie, take up those stupid words and put words in there about the digestive system or the circulatory system or focusing or paying attention or concentration. So he gives lessons, but he'll use the frequency that our kids are on to teach these lessons. And so they're reading the stuff and they're performing the stuff, and it makes teaching a joy. So yes, I did that because I felt I've always teaching has always been a passion of mine, and I really want people to understand what we were saying. So having the words on the inside cover was very important, and I'm happy that we did that, and I'm glad that people have used it, and others have continued to do it. When Stevie Wonder came out with his album "Songs in the Key of Life," he had a booklet with all the words,
Yeah.
and it made a lot of sense. You know,
No, definitely. And it followed the song. Like, you listen to the song and you don't get the words, but when you're listening to the melody and you're reading it, you're there in time with the song itself because you're reading the lyrics. And I think that's important.
exactly.
And that goes to my next question is um I'm a strong believer that fatherhood is a work of art. And like you were talking about the rhythmic patterns through music and spoken words, how did that help you in raising your kids?
Listen, you know, fatherhood is a work of art. There are certain things that you have to be conscious of, and there's certain, it's like even though the mother is supposed to be the one to nurture and to show compassion, men have that too, and intuition. Men have all that as well. We have to also remember that we have 23 chromosomes that are female, and they need to be. If you're going to be a real father, a matter of fact, I tell many of my friends that I said, you know what? have some daughters, and that will really help you your fatherhood thing, because the girls will bring out that certain aspect of you that many times men think that we have some very warped definitions of men and women in America, and it follows like they say men aren't supposed to cry. Who made that up? Who said that? That's silly. That's dumb. I'm gonna cry if I see something that touches my heart. So there's certain things that we need to recognize, and there's certain. All men are hard and like stone. You can have a softness. You should have some compassion. You should show some love, and those are key ingredients that I've discovered in the way I was raised. Daddy Joe was about work, but at the same time, he was a nurturing man in that he provided for us, and I never wanted for anything. He just had a certain veneer that made him appear to be like a Superman in a sense, because he was strong. But I saw him at his low points, and matter of fact, when he went into the hospital before he died, he went into the hospital with calcium deposits on his knee, and that sounded like a minor operation to scrape calcium off your knee. I mean, that's not a big deal. But he caught pneumonia while he was in the hospital, and he checked out. And it really killed me because, I mean, as mean as he was and as strong as he was, I saw him on that gurney in the hospital, and I felt so bad because there was a love that he did display by working and making sure that I had everything I needed, that I felt that at that moment in time I was missing that. And I knew that he had his way of showing love. It just wasn't the same way my mother did. My mother was a lot more demonstrative in terms of hugs and kisses and all that. No, I didn't hug and kiss my father. Matter of fact, my mother would give me a present, a Father's Day gift to give him, and she said, "Now give this to Joe and give him a kiss." I said, I didn't want to put my lips on his rough face. His face felt like sandpaper. But my mother wanted me to be close and recognize that he also had a love for me, but it wasn't always going to be as demonstrative as my mother's love was. But I learned a great deal from being raised in a balanced family with a mother and a father who cared for me and did everything necessary to help me become a man that I am today.
Definitely, definitely. And you last year you came out with the album Gratitude. And I'm gonna throw this next question to you. Um, what do you how can I phrase it? Um, you've been serving all your life. You helping other people, helping community. How do you find gratitude in serving other people? And what do you do for yourself to pour into yourself to make sure you're good? Because sometimes we pour so much into people, we forget about taking care of ourselves.
You know what? I've been blessed to have kids. My kids look out for me. I have my niece is my manager of the book of the gigs that I have, and they will stop me from overdoing and overlooking myself. They will make sure. I had my lady who was for 39 years. I had a lady that every year of my birthday she would take me to an island. If you name the island in the Caribbean, I've probably been there maybe twice, because I spent all of my birthdays for the last 30, 40 years. And when she passed away, my kids took up the slack and they started taking me to islands. We went to Puerto Rico, we went to Dominican Republic, and it just so my kids kind of make me take time out. They know the work that I do. They appreciate me and they've shown love. I've had angels around me. I've got friends and I got family that care, because I do work and I believe in work. But you do have to have some time for yourself. And the other thing too is I lately have gotten into painting in the last 4 years, and it's been super therapeutic. I mean, I'm really caught up in this thing, and I would never consider myself a painter, but I'm gonna have a showing on December 14th at this gallery in Harlem, and it's blown my mind because I don't consider myself a painter. I had one of the top painters in Harlem named Adimola come over to my house a couple of weeks ago to assess some of the paintings that they want to put on display. And he told me that I had a thing for colors. I had and that has some interesting subjects. And I was about ready to cry because I'm listening to a guy that I consider a genius, and he was endorsing some of my work. So I must have, and then one of my sons have taken a few of my things to put up in his house. So I guess I am doing something that's working, but it's kind of new, but it gives me a certain, it helps me pull away from some of the stuff that I do for other people. And I'm doing something that really gives me a certain self-satisfaction. And it's a whole nother world when you have your brushes and your paints and the canvas. It is you and the colors you decide to use, the brush that you decide to use, and the idea in your mind that you're deciding to put on the canvas. It's a whole nother world. And it gives you a certain degree of personal satisfaction that I haven't found. My writing is something I do like breathing. I do it every day. Writing is like natural for me. Some people think that's kind of strange that I could write every day. I mean, I've never found a day where I couldn't write something. There's always something to write about. I mean, one time I was sitting with paper and pen, and I had nothing really to write about, so I wrote a poem about nothing. And it was one of the greatest poems I've written, because nothing, it has to have some quality because it's opposite of something. So, it's like somebody writes a poem about the hole in the donut. Yeah, it's just a donut, and there's a hole there. It's just nothing. No, it makes the donut what a donut is. Without that hole, it wouldn't be a donut. So it's like we have to recognize that there's an expression that Black folks used to say years ago, and I used to think it was crazy. Brothers say, "Yo, what's happening, man?" But say, everything is everything. Why do Black people say everything is everything? I had to grow up to understand that everything is everything.
Wow. And then
So I'm
also,
trying to deal with that.
and then also, the next question, like, again, going back to, your album Gratitude, like, how, like, just talk about, just finding gratitude in serving other people.
You know what? When you serve other people, you're serving yourself. And people need to recognize that. When you do, and especially if you're doing it from your heart, I want people, if you're going to be around me, I want you to feel good. That's why I know that we're dealing with people the people that came over here on the Mayflower, they didn't feel good about themselves. They disliked themselves. If they had felt good about themselves, they would not have destroyed the Native American way of life. They would not have brought us over here to pick their cotton. They would have, but they had issues, and they still have those same issues. Racism only comes about because of insecurity, and you're not feeling good about yourself, and you're very insecure. So you create a whole pattern, a system that says, if this person's a certain color, they can't come in. I mean, if you feel good about you, you would let anybody show up. You don't care because you feel good. And if you have bad intentions, I'm gonna change that because I got something good for you to get rid of your bad intentions. These folks have bad intentions and they live with that. It's become a disease. Their whole attitude is a nasty disease, worse than cancer. And it's very sad because they're telling on themselves. We are people of life and the celebration of life. We love life. We love to celebrate. You can give us an old phony holiday and we'll pull out the daggone grill and barbecue some stuff and have some music blasting. We ain't got nothing to do with the 4th of July, but you look around, you think that it was our day of being free. It ain't. Yeah. We were picking cotton when this country became independent. But the fact is that we're about celebration. And on the other hand, you take those other folks, they have celebrations they call the Burning Man concert. You got a big old wooden statue of a man set on fire, and that's a celebration. If the hockey team wins the championship, you'll turn cars over and light them up and break the windows of storefronts. Makes no sense. They're about death and destruction. We have a different understanding of life. And when I gratitude, being grateful for your life, being grateful for your blessings that you're receiving every day, is something that we need to cherish. So that album, after I done it, because it was a family project, and my mother knew I was doing this album, and she said to me, "What are you going to name your album that you're working on?" And I'm trying to think of what's going to be mother. It's going to be mother friendly because my mother's very Christian. She believes in God, and so I kind of reviewed the stuff that was on that album, and I said to myself, I was thinking about naming it gratitude. And she said, "Oh, that's a beautiful thing." And when she said that, it was a done deal. And my mother endorsed that because and I look at all the tracks, the first track being about dealt with rain, is the first piece I ever did talking about my mother and my father and how they raised me. And then I have the piece on there about don't know what I do without you, and that was dealing with my lady. I praise the Lord, and that's talking about the religious aspects. I mean, occupy. I mean, everything on there shows my gratitude towards the life that I have been living and the people who have shared my life with me.
And it's an amazing album. The link for that album will be in the description below. Um, Also, just talk about the first album and how, like, I can name 10 songs that has been I could name two, like 10 like hip hop songs that sampled that first album. Just give me your feelings of how so many artists are influenced by the work of the last poets and they sample your work, and how you feel about that, because sometimes what happens is, like, when you get sampled, you might not get the financial credit for it because the way they try to
Yeah,
hide it and everything like
that
that.
has happened. Yes, that has happened. Unfortunately, I had to take Jay Z. Jay Z had an artist called Rita Ora, and she had done a rap called "This Is How We Party," and in it she used "party and bullshit," and she said "party and bullshit"
Mm,
about 29 times, and that's a part of a very well known poem I wrote called "When the Revolution Comes," and I said, and the thing about it is, I'm saying that we're not going to have a revolution because niggas will party and bullshit, and we're not going to be about taking care of business. And so when I'm saying it, I'm saying that that's something that we should not do. Hip hop took it and it reversed it by saying, let's do that. Let's party and bullshit. And that came about because Biggie Smalls was at Prospect Park, and the audience was kind of rowdy and loud, and he wanted to get their attention. So he just yelled out, "Party and bullshit." Now, obviously, Biggie had heard my piece, but he made it a chant, and it became a chant in the park, and people attributed Biggie Smalls with saying that particular line.
mm,
But when I spoke to Africa Mambata and Kool Herc, who are two of the brothers I consider to be the architects of hip hop, Africa Mambata and Kool Herc, I give credit to them. They said the only thing that they had to listen to before the creation of hip hop was the last poets, because no one had ever said anything as honest and as real as what we had said. I had a chance to talk to Billy Eckstein, one of our great singers from back in the day. We had gotten an award together in Philadelphia at the African American Music Association Awards, and he was sitting at my table, and I was blown away. I'm sitting at a table with Billy Eckstein. Oh my God! I got up and I said, Billy, I love your work. I love your songs, and you've always been a major inspiration to me. And he says, "Aren't you one of the last poets?" And I said, "Yes, I am." He says, "What you said on stage is what we used to just think backstage." So he let me know that he had listened to what I said too, and they had been moved by it. So we pulled the covers off of a lot of stuff by being as honest and straightforward as we were. And yes, we've been sampled a lot, and sometimes folks think they can get away with it, because the truth is that once you say something that is truthful, it will last forever. And if you had a nice way of saying it that people enjoy hearing, somebody will try to say that again. We all repeat things that we've heard that have affected us, have had an impact on us. I am grateful. Sampling is almost a compliment, but at the same time, there is a business part of this whole world of recording that should be adhered to. And it would be nice at least to give honor and respect to those folks who actually came up with this expression. So that's an ongoing thing. I do have a fantastic lawyer, probably one of the best entertainment lawyers in the country. His name is Gregory J. Reed. He's out of Detroit. And there are some samplings that have taken place where I have gotten paid because he has been on the case. Seven Streeter, for example, she's a young
mm,
singer, a sister, I think, and she wanted to sample some stuff, but she did it properly. She had her people get in touch with me. and emailed me and asked me could they sample this. I sent that email straight to my entertainment lawyer, and he took care of it, and I got a nice size check in about a couple of weeks. So it can be done properly. Some people are going to try to circumvent all the process that they're supposed to go through, but that's okay. I know where I'm at. I'm in America, and if you can steal something and get away with it, that's what you'll do. So it doesn't blow me away. I continue to look forward to having, I always say I will get what I deserve. There's no question about that.
No, and you will. And I want to talk about your open house. You open your home, you cook, and you have this on Sundays. You cook and you have poets and they recite poetry. Where did that idea start from to do open house?
That's every Sunday since I've been working at Columbia University. I have access to all the facilities at Columbia University. And they tell you if you want to use the gymnasium or the swimming pool, you always allowed to bring two guests. I've never paid respect to that. I would have 15 guys on Sunday to come over to the gym with me because we want to play basketball. I'm a basketball freak. I love basketball. I refer to basketball as an African dance. And I have a great shot. When I see Steph Curry shooting that long shot, I am not impressed because that's what my game was. Me and my son Pharaoh both have long jump shots. And we love to see the ball go through the hoop. So I would have a bunch of guys who I would take over to the gym every Sunday. And then I knew that after the game we'd be hungry, so I would fix some food for them. So I have food, they come over to the house and we would talk. And because I'm a little older, they always had information and stuff they wanted to like ask me questions and so forth. One Sunday, I had a young man that went with us, and he was told by somebody about us playing basketball, and he said, "Yo, man, I know who you are, man, and I got a poem." I said, "Brother, I'm glad you know who I am." I said, "But right now, I don't have no time to hear no poetry. We're getting ready to play some poetry, you know." And so he said, "Okay, okay." So, but he was so I could feel that he really wanted me to hear this poem that he had written and to give him some feedback. But I wasn't ready to hear no poem. I wanted to shoot the hoops. I was ready to play ball. So he played. He was on my team too. And he had a nice little game. We won. We won like 5 games in a row. And so I felt very good because, when you're playing ball like that, you want to win because you could be sitting back watching other people for a long time. If you don't win and you don't get picked up by the other team. So we won. We kept winning. So at the end of the day, we're getting ready to come over to the crib. And I said, "Well, I hear that poem, brother. I'm down to hear the poem." He had the poem in his pocket the whole time we were playing. The poem was just a blot of ink on white paper. The sweat had killed the words,
Wow.
and he looked like death. I felt so bad for him. He looked like somebody had stabbed him in the chest with a knife. So I put my arms around him. I said, "Brother, listen, I'm gonna bring you to my house. I'm gonna sit you in my chair, and I have a magical pen and a special piece of paper. If you wrote that poem, you're going to remember it and you're going to rewrite it. And I'm going to figure some food." That was the very first moment that the open house began. My son reminded me of that. And
Wow.
every Sunday from then on, I would have poets come over. And then I made my regular Sunday meal with salmon croquettes. My salmon
Mm.
croquettes are famous from here to the end of the world. I go to Germany, and I've had people say to me last year when I was in Germany, this white woman comes to me and says, "If I come to America, can I have some of your salmon croquettes?" I mean, people know about my salmon, and I'm happy they do because I definitely do them a little differently than the way that many people. I don't use breadcrumbs. I don't use no flour. I don't have none of that stuff. Matter of fact, I even put shredded carrots in my salmon croquettes. So I mean, I
Wow.
do a whole different number. My sister, who's a super cook, she even talks about how good my croquettes are. And my mother,
Mm.
I was taking out for Mother's Day, and that was a big mistake because you got to reserve spots for Mother's Day because all the restaurants are packed. And we went to
Yes.
Sylvia's, it was packed. We went to Copeland's, it was packed. And my mother says, "Why are we going to these restaurants? I heard you made food for your company on Sunday." I said, "Yeah, I do, mommy, but this is a Mother's Day thing." She says, "Oh, I would like to eat some of my son's cooking, but it would be nice." So I brought her home, and she said, "We run around here trying to find a place to eat, and you got food already cooked." So I gave her some salmon croquettes, hooked her some eggs and some home fries, and she said, "This was good." She says, "You wrap up a couple of them croquettes for me to take home with me." so, so my mother made it clear that I had some talent in that regard, and I appreciated that because I sure enough gave her some of the extra croquettes. So it's like, and doing all that stuff, it makes me feel worthwhile to be able
Mhm.
to feed people, to be able to hear their poetry, give them some heads up on what they're doing to help them improve on their skills and whatnot. So I've come as far as I have because somebody gave me advice. Amiri
Right.
Baraka gave me a bunch of advice. Other people, I, none of us can go through this world without somebody giving us instruction on how to get to where we want to go. So I want to do the same thing for those people that are coming behind me, and it brings a certain satisfaction to me that I can't, if you're about giving, that's something you have to do from your heart. You don't do it begrudgingly. I want to give because I feel I have something to give, and it makes me feel very good when people receive and use whatever I've given them in a wise way. It makes me feel very, very good. It gives me a certain kind of joy. Teachers don't get paid much, but when I run into students I had 20, 30 years ago, and they remind me of the stuff that I taught them, and they even recite some of the work that I've given them, oh, that's you can't give me a check that would make me feel happier.
And
Yeah.
then just talk about when COVID hit and you went virtual. Like, how did that happen? And then from there, how has that been for you therapeutically,
But
going through COVID and having this virtual space to go to keep it going?
you know what? I have to thank my niece Juanita and my son Oba because I was very upset with the fact that people could not gather, that was out. Gathering together could be dangerous for our health. And besides the fact I lost my brother during that period, my brother who was like just 2 years younger than me, he died from the virus because I know that the way Raheem thought no virus could attack him because he felt invincible. He was like a lot of us, that doesn't affect me. So, but he caught it and took him out. I did not know that this machinery could work like it is working. This technology could be. And Juanita, she told me that we could do it like this. And my son also said that we could still do open house. I was totally blown away with the idea that this thing could happen. And then when it started happening, and we started getting a family of writers every other Sunday, and they were dedicated, and they were from like Nigeria and South Africa and Brazil and in California, people that could not be in my house on Sunday, but on the screen we can communicate. It still blows my mind that this thing is as big as it is, and it works. We are this past Sunday. The theme was education, and Paul, one of the people that participates, he is willing to actually put together a book of the poetry that we've been sharing. And we were just asking everybody to send their poems to Juanita, and she'll get them to Paul. And Paul has experience in publishing stuff, so he has the apparatus to do that. This has been, I have a family of poets that I'm extremely proud of, and beyond the poetry, the conversations that we have about life's issues are just as vital. I mean, some very important things have come out. I am I'm really blown away because I did not know the effect that this was going to have. And it's like we have taken this technology and we brutalized it by putting ourselves like everything else. They give us something that looks like it's going to be not working or artificial, and we inject a certain light into it that nobody could even imagine. So the virtual thing is working. And the other piece is that I don't have to get up and make salmon croquettes because I can't feed you that virtually. But every so often, I, I do have some people come through sometime, and I will cook for them because I had some young ladies were here from about a few weeks ago from Amsterdam, And I did not disappoint them. I had been told that they were going to be here. So I got up and I made some croquettes and some home fries, and they ate, and they were so excited, so happy. And so and I love to cook anyway. And the one thing about it, if you visit me, if you're going to be in my house, I will offer you food because that's what we do. You know, you go to some other people's houses, they'll offer you something to drink. Well, I like to offer people food.
Yeah, but at the same time, they gotta recite a poem or something. They gotta do something. They can't just
Oh
eat.
yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. You did. Yeah, so this is not the meal. You don't just come here for a free meal. You got to share something. Yes, for sure. And they definitely their poetry, and they also had ideas of bringing me over to Amsterdam. I told them I've been to Amsterdam a few times. Matter of fact, I got friends in Amsterdam, and it's one of the more humane countries in Europe. The people there treat you really nice. It's a very nice place to visit. But you know, I'm not, I'm kind of strung out on being around black folks. I like being around my people because there's a certain rhythm, a certain vibration that I get. But I like people in general. I don't
Right.
care what your ethnicity is. I can enjoy the presence of people from different parts of the world. But I just have a love for my folks because the rhythm and the impetus of black people, you can't duplicate that any place on the planet. We have a certain thing that is without question special, very special. And the poetry that I write comes from my folks. I can see the poetry, hear the poetry, smell and taste when I'm around my people. I mean, I can hear poetry in other people too, but we are poetic by nature.
Yes.
Everything we do has a poetic flair to it, and I try to capture that and give it back.
And you definitely give it back, and you give it back to me 100-fold, and I truly appreciate it. Before you recite your piece, do you want to tell people again about the event that's coming up, the art show? You want to let people know about it because that information will
Yeah,
be in the link description below.
right. Yeah, I think it's December 14th. I'm having my very first art exhibition at the gallery on 144th Street, Hamilton Place in Harlem, and it's blown my mind because right now the curator and the one of the ladies who is actually producing this thing, they're looking for cheap frames because when I had Adimola, one of our resident artists, come to my house to assess some of my work, he said he endorsed it. He said I had some good stuff. He said, but before I put on a show, I need to put this stuff in a frame. So frames that's I hadn't even considered that, but so they find some cheap frames, and when you do frame stuff, it does give it a certain kind of ambiance that it wouldn't have normally. So that's good, and I'll be interested to see what it looks like in a frame. But the fact is that that's the plan, and also we're gonna me and Felipe and Babatunde are also gonna do some poetry. So it's gonna be my artwork on the wall, and we're going to have a poetry recital at the same time on one of those days. There'll be flyers are going around that'll tell people what's going to happen, and that's something that there's already one flyer out about the showing on the 14th, and the time of the recite when we're going to recite will also be mentioned. But that's something I'm kind of nervous about it, but at the same time, I'm looking forward to it.
But as an extraordinary artist, you got this. You know, if you're a phenomenal presence on the stage as an artist, it's going to be the same thing. It's about repetition. Like you said, like playing basketball, you got that speed jump shot. You put practice on that jump shot, and so you put practice on that artwork. So it's that's automatic. Is yeah, that's what do they call it? That's like when you shoot. That's like butter. So it's just like butter. You gonna knock it out of the
Well,
park.
well, I had a sister tell me. She says, "Abiodun, stop." Says, if you're an artist, that doesn't mean that you just do one thing. When you're an artist, mostly whatever you do is going to have some art attention given to it because that's just your nature. So if you cook, it's going to be artistically cooked.
Yes.
If you sing, if you sew, you're not going to do it in a raggedy way. You're going to always employ the artist in you into the work that you do. And it made a lot of sense what she said because I am dedicated to the arts. And I even wrote a piece talking about the value of art, how it is the only way that we can communicate with God. And so because when you're dealing with art, you're being creative, and then we all were created by the so-called creator, and you cannot create something without putting yourself into it. And it's just like God could not create us without putting some of himself into us. So we all have some God inside of us. That's why we should never fear the devil, because if you activate the God in you, you have a shield against the devilish behaviors of everybody. There's no question. But we need to recognize that the God in us is very much alive, and it has saved us so far, and it will continue to save us as long as you keep faith and believe. Yes.
Def- definitely, and I agree with that. And you know, being in that, bringing out that God in us. If you want to end this great conversation that I've had with you, this has been an awesome hour conversation. I can like talk to you for another 2 hours if you have the time. But and that's facts. That's facts. Um, but if you want to end it with a poem, I know you have two pieces. Do you want to read both pieces, or what do you want to do? The floor is yours.
What other piece? What other piece
It,
did I have to do? I mean,
you had
Madam
the
President was
Janice and
new.
you had
What
the
other piece?
Madam President. The floor is yours. Whatever you decide you want to recite, the floor is yours.
Well, Madam, and what was the other one that you
It
heard?
was Janice. It was Janice.
Oh, Janice. Oh, that's the poem I just wrote about my sister. Wow, she told you that?
Yes, she did.
Yeah, I just wrote. My sister's birthday was yesterday, and she passed away a while ago. My baby sister, and I had not written. I wrote a poem when she first passed away. She died of multiple sclerosis, and so I forgot that she was born on the 11th. And my older sister was telling me that I should never forget that because she was born on Veterans Day. So I wrote a poem about her today, and I sent it to Juanita. I guess she'll post it because my sister was she was my baby sister, and she was about love. She was one of the most loving human beings that you could ever meet. She was loved so much until when she had multiple sclerosis. We were trying to take her to a family reunion that Juanita was basically in charge of. So we were going down to Florida, and we were trying to get her to the SUV, but the multiple sclerosis messed with your motor skills, and so she was having difficulty. And I'm holding on to her, and she's holding on to the fence, and we're trying to get her into the SUV. I was attacked by 8 sisters in the projects. They ran over to me and looked like they were going to beat me up, and and I was shocked. And then she said, "What you doing, Miss Janice? What you doing, Miss Janice?" And then my sister said, "This is my brother." They said, "Oh, we don't let nothing happen to her." I ain't never seen that in my life, man. I've seen people get shot. People walk by, they don't pay no attention. She had her own security force, which
Wow.
told me how much they loved her. They were ready to put their lives on the line to protect her. They didn't know who I was. All I saw was a man messing with this woman who they had nothing but reverence for, and they wanted to come and interfere. And I was shocked. I said, "Oh my God, I'm gonna get beat up trying to take my sister and put her in the SUV." And
Right.
she stopped and said, "This is my brother." And when she told them who I was, everything was cool. But that particular moment let me know how much my sister was truly loved. She was a very special human being. And unfortunately, in America, love can be a target for a lot of bad things to happen, and makes you very vulnerable. Even though you have people that love you because you are loved, you're gonna have some other folks that are not gonna be as comforting and as secure, and they're gonna try to live and bite and eat off of your love and not treat you the way you should be treated. So she suffered for both angles. But this poem I had to write based on the fact that everybody is so upset that Kamala is not the president and all that stuff. So I wanted to just set the record straight. And I wrote this called Madam President. The black woman has always been the true president of America. She was brought here from Africa to raise bad children from Europe. Her
Mm,
love of life caused her to provide supreme service for these children. She grew the cotton, picked the cotton,
mm,
became the cotton they wore, the bed they slept in, the blankets to keep them warm. She became the sugar cane to sweeten their drink, the tobacco they smoked, the indigo to dye their clothes, the peach that made their cobbler, the apple that made their pie, the rice they ate for dinner, the flapjacks they had for breakfast. She was the humming of the wind, the rain on the crops, the morning dew, the sun shining after the rain. This is who the black woman was and still is. The milk for their babies, the manners to correct them, the prayers for their safety. There would be no America if she had not raised it. She has presided over everything that concerns life in America. Still, she is mistreated, abused, and scorned, forced to watch her man killed, sons hung from a tree, locked up in prison, suffer and live in misery. Her blessings are cursed, yet they know she is their mother. They even call her Mammy.
mm. Wow. 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 That's facts. That's a history lesson for all those people that don't know their history. And
People,
before we
yeah,
started before we
that's
start having the conversation, you were saying how you always getting phone calls of people crying, like, "Oh my God," oh, da, da, da. And you're like,
right.
"Man up! This is your time,
Yeah,
history, to stand up for what's right."
yeah. We need to recognize the role we played in this sucker because we played a major role. And the black woman in particular, she's had to carry this world on her head, and she is still required to do that. And a lot of times we get caught up with these games. The whole voting thing is a game. That's a game. It's like a video game. I mean, even the president is just window dressing. Trump doesn't make up any policies. This is handed down from the people who are wealthy, got all the money, and they simply tell him what to do. And he likes to be on the front of the newspaper. He likes to have his name said. He's a kid that wants a lot of attention. So they said, "Look, give me attention." The person that people should be concerned about is Elon Musk. He's a
Mm,
character that we need to, because he's got a lot of money and he wants to turn this world into a bunch of robots. And he's got plans for iRobot to be a real, true existence where many jobs will be taken away because you have machines to do that. Many things, the human element of life will be obsolete if Elon Musk has his way, and he'll be able to control things from his house with a remote control. So he's a real character. Trump is just a character. He's a bona fide crazy character that we already know. Elon Musk has got a whole nother idea of the way he wants to see the world, and he's dangerous because he wants to take the heart out and make it a gadget.
and the scary thing about Elon is that now that he Trump won, is that now he's gonna have a lot of say when it comes to policy, when it comes to companies. Like, he's gonna be the person that's gonna be regulating the regulators when it comes to companies in America and abroad. So that's a scary thing. But do you want to recite that poem, Janice? Do you want to recite that? Is your
I
call?
have to
I
pull
feel
it up
like
off my computer. I, I I I have to get it from my computer because I don't have it in front of me. I gave enough information already about Janice.
yes, you
I'm
did.
good.
You did. You did. Yeah, you're good.
You
You're good. But again, I appreciate you
know,
for coming on. This has been like an early Christmas present to me because I always wanted to interview
well,
you from the days of like learning about the last poets and just following your work. Like, truly from the bottom of my heart, that this is like the biggest interview of my life, because I always wanted to, like, I
Well,
know we've done it all virtually with the open house, but to actually just talk to you in the present, this means the world to me.
Well, brother, I want to say that I'm proud of you, brother, for doing this for 4 years, because this is a way that we can communicate important information to our people. And for you to do this, I think is special. And I'm just proud of the fact that you have, I don't know what kind of changes you had to go through to have this podcast, but I know nothing comes without some changes. I know that there's always a process. And for you to withstand the process and do this and make this available to the thousands of people that are watching, I want to thank you for this opportunity, because I have a lot of things that I can say and that's on my mind. But if I'm in my house talking to a few people, that's just one thing. When I have an opportunity to talk to a brother like you who are communicating with a bunch of folks, it makes it a whole nother thing altogether, brother. So my kudos to you, because you're doing the important work that we need to have done at this time. We need to communicate real information to our folks and hopefully get them to recognize that we are holding a lot of power that we need to implement, and we got to stop seeing ourselves as powerless. We have power that we have not even tapped into yet. And I do believe that Trump will give us an opportunity to flex our spiritual muscles and show the world once again who we really are.
Definitely. And I'm doing my part, and you've been doing your part for almost many
But yeah,
decades.
we don't have to change horses. All we gotta do is keep on riding the same horse. That's it, baby.
Facts. And this has been
All right.
another amazing episode of Dad Is Not a Now. Like, subscribe, and all that stuff. And we're out. Peace.